Of one of the world's most famous acting dynasties, Jane Fonda is bona fide Hollywood royalty. She's been in the movie business for over 6 decades now, and in that time we've seen her shine in everything from iconic comedies to Oscar-winning dramas. As well as being a star, though, the esteemed actress is also a mum. And while Jane has enjoyed an incredibly successful career, she harbors regrets when it comes to her children. In fact, in a recent interview, Jane spoke out about exactly how she's fared as a mum. Jane's 3 children. Jane has 3 adult kids from 2 past marriages to movie maker Roger Vadim and politician Tom Hayden. Their names are Vanessa Vadim, Troy Garrity, and Mary Williams, respectively, the last of whom was unofficially adopted by the actress. The trio have followed in their mother's footsteps in different ways over the years, taking an interest in entertainment and social activism. Meeting Vanessa, Jane's eldest. Vanessa has dipped her toes into both of those worlds as the years have passed. Most recently, she helped with the making of a 2018 documentary about her famous mum Jane Fonda in 5 acts. Vanessa is also a staunch campaigner, with the actress' daughter joining the Fire Drill Fridays demonstrations in Washington, D.C. in 2019. Jane and Mary were often by her side too. Mary's hard work. Speaking of Mary, let's focus on her next. Much like her adoptive sister, she puts a lot of time into being an activist. To give you an example, one of her biggest focuses has been to help people who've fled Sudan. On top of that, Mary's an author as well, writing 2013's The Lost Daughter, a memoir, which details her early life experiences. Troy's acting. As for Troy, he's been making his way as an actor for much of his life. His last role came in the 2021 TV show On the Verge, appearing in all 12 episodes. He currently has 49 career credits to his name, which isn't too shabby. And it shows that the Fonda acting dynasty isn't coming to an end just yet. Mixed emotions about childhood. Now, Jane has previously noted just how proud she is of all 3 of her kids. She loves them dearly. At the same time, though, the Hollywood legend has also recognized that their childhoods couldn't have been easy, believing much of it was down to her. After all, Jane's life was more than a little hectic back then, to say the least. A sci-fi classic. When her acting career was starting to take off, Jane tied the knot with Roger Vadim in 1965. Vanessa was born 3 years later in France, just weeks before the release of her parents' sci-fi classic Barbarella. From there, Jane's star entered the stratosphere, and she began to divide her movie work with her activism. But the marriage to Roger didn't last. A growing family. After 8 years together, Jane and Roger went their separate ways in 1973. Yet the actress didn't waste any time in getting married again. She got hitched with Tom Hayden that same year. Troy was welcomed into the world in the summer in California. Then, as the mum of 2 continued to flex her acting and activist muscles, she and Tom opened their home to Mary in 1982, the second divorce. And Jane's personal life took another twist in 1990. At that stage, her marriage with Tom came to an end. Doubtless that episode must have been tough on the movie star and her family alike. But on the subject of her kids, what was it like growing up in those unique surroundings? A dangerous controversy. Well, Vanessa spent her formative years in California alongside Troy following Jane and Roger's split. During that spell, their mum had been very vocal in her criticism of the Vietnam War, even going so far as to spend a bit of time in North Vietnam in 1972. That trip proved to be incredibly controversial, and it put Jane's family in a potentially dangerous position. A very scary time. Yes, while Jane was married to Tom, they frequently needed to cover the windows of their family home so folks couldn't smash them. And even more alarmingly, the pair had to be on the lookout for any explosive devices strapped to their vehicle across that period too. They must have been on edge, especially with 2 young kids in the house. The origin of Troy's name. Yet neither Jane nor Tom changed their views on the Vietnam conflict. In fact, It was those convictions that had ultimately inspired the couple to name Troy after the famous Vietnamese revolutionary Nguyen Van Troy. As for why he wasn't given Hayden or Fonda as a surname, his parents had a very good reason. Troy went into more detail on that front in a 1998 interview. It would be better. Speaking to People magazine, Troy noted, "When I was born, there was still a lot of anger over my parents' involvement in Vietnam. They thought it would be better if I grew up with my own name. So, he took on his grandma's maiden name of Garrity. You couldn't say that Jane and Tom didn't have his best interests in mind. A balancing act. But while Troy and Vanessa got through that period unscathed, Jane found it difficult to juggle her acting and activism with being a mom. It was especially tough while her son was still a baby. As the Hollywood icon told a 1977 issue of People, I couldn't possibly balance my lives as an actress, political activist, and mother if I weren't married to Tom." A new face. Eventually, Jane said that she'd reached a satisfying position at the start of the 1980s, which coincided with Mary's arrival. She was a teenager by then, coming into the family off the back of a troubled upbringing with her 5 brothers and sisters. Quite simply, their folks, who were part of the Black Panther political party, couldn't look after them anymore. Personal issues. So Jane and Tom took Mary in. It didn't take long for her to get comfortable, with Troy forming a particularly close bond with her. But even though the actress claimed to have hit a sweet spot when it came to her parenting then, she still had personal issues to deal with. The biggest was in relation to her own dad, Henry Fonda, mending fences. To say that Jane and Henry didn't have the smoothest of relationships would be a bit of an understatement. They had their problems with each other, but the famous father-daughter duo tried to fix things prior to Henry's passing in 1982. The actress looked back on that time when she was a guest on CNN's Who's Talking to Chris Wallace in February 2023. "I forgave him." Jane recalled, "Before Henry died, I was able to tell him that I loved him and that I forgave him for, whatever didn't happen. And I hoped that he would forgive me for not being a better daughter. I got to say that to him. He didn't say anything, but he wept. I had never seen that before. I'd never seen my father break down and weep, and it was powerful." Her biggest regret. As the conversation went on, though, Jane started to think about other regrets that she had in her life. Which brings us back to Vanessa, Troy, and Mary. In the actress' mind, she believed that her imperfections as Henry's daughter carried over into her own parenting. And those negative feelings had been weighing her down for a very long time. "I just didn't know how to do it. I was not the kind of mother that I wished that I had been to my children," Jane admitted in the interview. "I have great children, talented, smart, and I just didn't know how to do it. I've studied parenting, and I know what it's supposed to be now. I didn't know then. So I'm trying to show up now." It wasn't the first time. Mind you, this wasn't the first time that Jane had brought all of this up. In a previous chat with People, the 2-time Oscar winner had said, "The few things I regret in my life are not the controversy and the activism, but not having put enough time into mothering, wiving, and taking care of the inner life." Did she ever relay those feelings to her kids, though? I'm sorry, you bet. During a different interview with the publication back in 2017, Jane revealed, "I tell my kids I'm sorry for not being more present in their lives at times. I'm thankful that I've gotten better over the 80 years. I'm less judgmental, I'm forgiving. It wasn't always true. I've really worked hard to get better as a human being." It wasn't easy, and Jane's attempts to better herself seemed to work when it came to the kids. For instance, the acting titan was always trying to beef up the bond she shared with Vanessa as she got older, while understanding the challenges she'd faced. "It wasn't easy growing up, as my daughter Jane candidly told People in 2008, but Vanessa is an amazing woman." Jane's health. What was it that prompted Jane's outpouring about Henry and her kids in 2023, though? Why was she so focused on her regrets? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back to September 2022. At that point, the Barbarella star discovered that she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was able to get it treated, but her health situation left her in a reflective mood. No fear? In the fall of 2022, Jane spoke about this to people, revealing that she didn't fear death anymore. The mum of 3 told the magazine, "I've lived a good life. I've lived a productive and intentional life, and dying is part of life. I hope that I can be an example to young people so they won't be afraid of getting older. Remission. You just have to take care of yourself, which I do even now," Jane added. "Even the days that I get chemo, I still do a workout. It's slow and not what it used to be, but still, I'm moving and keeping strong." Fortunately, her cancer went into remission just before Christmas 2022, with the actress making the announcement via her official website. Spooked. Yet despite that great news, the health scare clearly had an effect on Jane. While she wasn't afraid of passing away, something did spook her. She couldn't shake it. So, the famous mom brought it up during her appearance on Who's Talking to Chris Wallace. She started by reiterating her stance, and then posing the host a pretty difficult question. An adventure. Jane said, "It's so important to try and clear everything up before you die. You know, I'm not scared of dying." Wallace smirked, admitting, "I'm not looking forward to it." His guest then claimed, "I am. It's an adventure, but having said that,